Welcome back to Sunrise. If you're just joining us this morning, our special guest is the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. Welcome back to the programme, Prime Minister.
I wanted to ask, just before we wrap up the conversation about the referendum, because it is such a topic of discussion at the moment, what is your position and your view on dual citizenship and holding such and being in the Member of Parliament?
Let me say this as a kind of precursor to answering you. I've tried not to say too much on the constitutional reform issues because there is a strategy to literally take all my statements and turn them into political fodder. And I didn't want anything that I said to be used as an excuse not to proceed, because we got the sense that people were looking for excuses not to proceed with the constitutional reform. So I deliberately totally stayed away from it. So even though I'm going to be very careful and guarded, limited in any statement that I make on this matter of the dual citizenship, except what I've already said, which I was very clear in statements made when I was leader of government business in the Parliament over a decade ago, that I believe that the Jamaican diaspora is much bigger than our Commonwealth, and that the Jamaican Commonwealth is our diaspora wherever they are, and that we should allow persons with Jamaican citizenship to be able to serve Jamaicans in our parliament politically. So for me, it doesn't matter what other citizenship you have, once you swear allegiance, being a Jamaican citizen, to Jamaica. That would be my stated position. The other thing I would say is that to be the ultimate leader of a country, to be the ultimate executive leader of the country, you should have no other citizenship. There should be no question by your citizens that you lead, that you have somehow split loyalties, that you have a parachute should in case anything go wrong, that you may not be subject to the full force of the laws of the country that you serve because you are a citizen of another country. You could always find a way out. So, and I think that is important. I think in the minds of every Jamaican, the question would be, is the leader of your country fully, wholly and solely committed to your best interest? And there is no other loyalty or interest drawing on the decisions that they make. So I think if you allow that, in other words, if you allow the leader of the country, in whatever position that leader is, to have another loyalty, then every decision that that leader makes will be open for question. So it is an untenable situation. And if you intend to become leader of the country, whether as Prime Minister or any top leadership, leader of the opposition, or to head the Parliament or whatever it is, you really should divest yourself of any other loyalty that you may have.
So am I taking that to mean then that, for instance, your party, I've seen members of your party over the past weekend calling for opposition leader Mark Golding to declare whether or not he is a UK citizen. You are saying then that if he is, then his position is untenable.
So for two things. We believe that we must find a way to include our diaspora, our Jamaicans. So once you are a Jamaican, you have Jamaican citizenship, we believe you should be entitled to enter our parliament and serve. However, having entered the parliament, if it is that you intend to become the ultimate decision maker, then you must divest yourself of any other loyalty, even if it is not required legally. Because in the minds of the Jamaican people, or any country, they're going to want to know that their ultimate decision maker is only making decisions based upon a single, transparent loyalty and allegiance
And
to
that's
them.
you're in it with us. You
Yes.
can't escape. You are in what we are in.
Yes.
And so more pointedly to my question then, that in relation to your opposition counterpart, that you're saying that his position would be untenable.
I think anyone in that position would be untenable, and not just that, I think it would be incurable. In other words, having gone ahead to say, I want to lead the country ultimately, and not having taken that step before, you can't cure it afterwards, because already the question is, then why didn't you do this before? Why did you carry us along and not declare this to us?
On the back of you mentioning
So it's not just untenable, it's incurable.
mentioning incurable, there are a lot of people who are of the perspective that there is an issue that we are having socially among our youth that feels frightening to behold. We had some really good conversations most recently here on this coach with the NET, and the work is being done to pour into education. We hear about the investments, we hear about the STEAM programs, obviously the expansion of STEM to include the arts. We hear about it all, but for some reason, the LIFT program as well,
Trend.
there's a feeling and a sense as though we have lost the next generation. There's a lot of contention. I hear a lot of whispering that we're gone to the dogs. What is your take on it? How can we change that perspective, and how can we bring everyone with us? There are the few who are doing exceedingly well, but it feels as though we're losing quite a few. What do you say to that?
Yanni, I'm very happy for the question. And again, let me give some context. For the last 40 years or so, Jamaica has not been in a position to make the level of investment in infrastructure and human resources that would keep a pace with other countries at our stage and state of development. So Jamaica fell behind. It is not just disinvestment which you see in the number of potholes and unrepaired roads. It is not just disinvestment in water supply, where there are so many persons now who feel that they are being left out because we haven't provided them with water.
Yeah.
It is also a disinvestment in our education system in general. And I make the point because there is a mood in the country to want to diminish the value of what this country has achieved in rebuilding the economy. Let's just get it clear. There is no investment, unless you're going to borrow, which we did, which got us into more problems, unless you have a solid economy. And what you have in this government is a government that has managed the economy in such a way as to now give us the opportunity to invest. But 40 years of this investment is not going to be corrected overnight or in one term or two terms. But you now have the engine that can carry us on the journey.
Now, what is the state of the engine in 2024 in terms of...
I wanted to just finish up with Yendi's question, and I'll come about the state of the engine. So we have a good engine, which is why NET, an institution which I take paternity for, that came out of the National Education Transformation, but it was something that I did specifically as Minister of Education because we recognized that there needed to be an entity to manage investments in education. So we are making the physical investments in education, but I think we all must agree with what you have said, that our human resources, in terms of their readiness and training, in terms of our socio-emotional regulation, that we do have a challenge. And we see that reflected on two pathways which are so important for our development. We see this being reflected in the level of productivity, and we see this reflected in the level of peace. So what is the next mission of the government, having addressed the issue of the economy? We are trying to address the issue as to who we are as a people through the constitutional reform. The next phase for us, and I've said it at the beginning of the year, is that the government is now going to focus on peace and productivity. And let's talk about peace and productivity from the lens of the education sector. We have seen an increase in violence in schools, particularly coming out of the
lockdowns,
the pandemic. We are seeing an entrenchment of gang-related activities in some of our schools. We're seeing behavior that for the older generations, it is just quite un-Jamaican. Because, you know, we come from a culture of respect, and we're seeing a generation where that respect may be expressed in a different form. And so there is a dissonance in the society. And remember, we are in the Gen Z generation where their view, their outlook on the world is quite different. They believe the world is customizable, that you know, there's a different standard, and truth be told, they're more inclusive than you know, the previous generation. So there is this kind of generational difference. You're looking at them and saying, oh, they're the last generation. No, they're not. They have a different perspective. Their creativity is different, and our education system needs to kind of change to how.
And meet them where they are.
Because remember now, yes, we have an education institution, but when you compare that educational institution to the information that is poured into our society, unregulated, without any form of context, that is what would have more impact on their behavior and outlook, and not necessarily the education system itself. So the education system has to change in order to accommodate this new
norm,
Jamaican. So the education system is going through transformation, and they have tried and are trying to change the exams, for example. What is it that we're examining for? The certain changes to the curriculum. But we haven't really started this massive transformation that will provide us with the workforce to keep the economy growing, and that will provide us with the next generation that are going to be good parents and solid citizens and people who will shun gangs and
skilled at conflict resolution.
Precisely.
All right, we're going to take another break. On the other side of the break, the conversation with the PM continues. We'll be right back.